California nurses are making fun of their patients in stupid social media videos. Apparently, they thought it would be cutesy and totally appropriate to make a little video of multiple clinic workers posing around various patient body fluids and asking viewers to guess the substance. And for what? For clicks, for views, for sick laughs? Shame on them and also not funny. Social media is ruining America, and now nurses like those are going viral for all the worst reasons. It's time for my losers of the week. Oh, what a week it's been. Democrat cities continue to add to their body counts, and simultaneously their leaders claim there's no issue, just some victims, a few dozen shootings, no biggie. Well, they're all losers, but you already know that. For my loser list this week, I'm going to stick to perhaps less consequential things because, quite frankly, I'm exhausted trying to understand the liberal mind. But come to think of it, it's also rather tricky to understand the thought process of legendary coach turned boy toy Bill Belichick these days. So over the last couple years, his 48-year age gap relationship with former cheerleader turned quasi-manager Jordan Hudson has raised some eyebrows. Then there was that bizarre CBS interview from last May wherein Jordan pretty much held old Bill hostage from the sidelines. And now the two are trademarking the word gold digger, reportedly for an upcoming jewelry and keychain line. It's all weird. But this brings us to the first big litmus test on if Jordan is in fact ruining his life and legacy. The UNC football season opener with Bill as head coach and Jordan, well, front and frickin' center. Not only did UNC lose that game 48-14 to TCU, by many accounts, Bill also lost his dignity. What in the actual hell is that girl doing anywhere near the field? As the wife of a coach, I'm blown away, and I have secondhand embarrassment just looking at it. May God Almighty strike me dead as a doornail if I ever, for any reason, go anywhere near a field of play while my husband is working. All of this comes after UNC and Jordan herself have proclaimed she would not have any role in the football program, despite managing his production company and quite apparently having his balls in a vice. This is next-level cringe, and I think we all need to do a welfare check on Bill stat. But speaking of welfare checks, my next bunch of losers this week are the wannabe influencer nurses of an urgent care clinic in Santa Barbara, California. Apparently, they thought it would be cutesy and totally appropriate to make a little video of multiple clinic workers posing around various patient body fluids and asking viewers to guess the substance. How professional. Now, Sutter Health has since responded to this blowback after the video went viral on TikTok and blew up on the Santa Barbara Reddit thread. The original video was posted by a former healthcare worker at one of Sutter Health's urgent care clinics. The TikTok belonging to Angie Uncut has since been locked. Viewers of the viral video pointed out how dehumanizing and rude it is for supposed healthcare professionals to post videos mocking their patients. Not cute, not nice. And for what? For clicks, for views, for sick laughs? Shame on them and also not funny. It reminds me of the pandemic days when overworked and overstressed nurses found so much extra time to post TikToks of themselves dancing while supposedly at work. I don't like it, not one bit. Social media is ruining America, and now nurses like those are going viral for all the worst reasons. Speaking of workplace F-ups, my final loser this week is fast fashion Chinese clothing website SHEIN. So somehow, some way, the company's website featured a male model in one of their cheap crap shirts that looks a whole hell of a lot like accused cold-blooded Luigi Magione. SHEIN took down that photo immediately after discovering it, and now the company is opening an investigation as to how that photo ended up on their site. It's unclear if the male image is Luigi, an AI recreation, or just a very, very convincing lookalike. SHEIN blames an outside vendor for providing and posting the accused doppelganger and vows to take action and also better monitor its own site in the future to ensure this never happens again. That's good to know because we wouldn't want to see the likes of O.J. Simpson and Brian Koberger modeling a lead paint-smelling romper on the site next. Good Lord. Folks, all the more reason to tear off the absolute crap out of all of this junk coming from China. If they don't monitor the model images on their own site, what the heck kind of monitoring do they do of their actual product or the poor sweatshop laborers making it? I say tear off it all. And those are my losers of the week. Joining me now in studio is Ungoverned host and commentator Shawn Farash. All right, Shawn, let's jump in, maybe at the start of the loser list with Bill Belichick. I don't know if you're a football fan. Quite frankly, I couldn't care less about college football. But I'm intrigued that Jordan Hudson has become maybe more interesting than the game itself, at least to many onlookers. What's your take?
Well, that's right in my wheelhouse. I'm a Jets fan, and I don't like Bill Belichick. So he resigned on a napkin. He was the head coach of the New York Jets for about a day after Bill Parcells left. And then he joined the New England Patriots and ruined my childhood, right? Because I rooted for the Jets my whole life. I'm alive because of the Jets in a way. My parents met because of them. So I always say the Jets are the reason why I'm a person. I exist. They're also going to be the death of me. But it's funny to be able to sit here with you and call Bill Belichick a loser because it's something that I've always wanted to do. So, yes, Bill Belichick is a loser. I don't know what he's got walking up and down the sidelines at UNC. This was a guy, when he coached the New England Patriots, he was no distractions, no nonsense, play the game, focus on what's going on in the field between the boundaries, right, on the field to play. Now he's nothing but a three-ring circus with this Jordan Hudson character patrolling the sidelines. It to me is nothing but a sideshow, and it seems to me very anti what Belichick used to stand for with the Patriots as their head coach. So I don't know what happened. But things are not going well. His legacy is in a nosedive right now. The whole, who made who? Did Belichick make Brady? Did Brady make Belichick? Were they both very good together? Well, Brady won a Super Bowl outside of New England, away from Belichick.
Yeah.
And Belichick hasn't seen success ever since he detached from Brady. So I think we know who made who here.
Well, and I think it's also the optics of the girlfriend, the 24-year-old. Meandering around. It's just so awkward for me. I know nothing about football. So that's just like a side note. But I would venture to guess that she knows nothing about football.
Probably.
Or probably very little about football. So what would a legendary coach, Bill Belichick, what would he need her to do? She looked like she was coming up to give him advice. I don't know, give him a pat on the... I'm not sure. Yeah. But I'm like, well, what is this woman doing? And she wears sort of like her snakeskin pants, and she's all in. That's fine. If you want to be, up in the box watching, that's fine. Not your fault. If you're the girlfriend, it's a little weird. But I don't think there's a reason on God's green earth for her to be anywhere near the field of play.
No.
And it seems bizarre to me that he would allow that and that UNC would allow that. Yeah. I think they're going to get some heat for this.
They should get some heat for it. It's a distraction. First of all, not just for people who, I don't really care about UNC football, right? I forgot that Belichick was even the coach of that team until this whole thing happened, which is very bad for UNC because I would be what you would consider a peripheral college football fan. I'll watch the Volunteers. Ever since moving to Tennessee, I was like, all right, might as well get into the college football thing, right? I like football as a sport, so I'll watch the Vols. I had no idea who was even coaching UNC. I didn't know if they were ranked. I didn't know anything. The only time I heard about it was after this. So the bad PR brought me to seeing more of a very silly, nonsensical display on the sideline. Not only is it a distraction for the school, but come on. Those players are obviously, they're probably paying more attention to her than they are to the game at some point, especially after it became, 48-14. What are they saying about her in the locker room? To me, it's not a good place for her to be. Can you imagine like Taylor Swift on the Chiefs sideline, right? What that would look like? Yeah. Come on, right? It's bad enough when she's in the box, right? So, waving, she has no idea what's going on in the field. I don't know. I think it's very strange to see Bill Belichick letting something like that or being a part of something like that when he was the complete opposite of that in the NFL. Very strange.
And now they want to make keychains.
Of course they do. What, the gold digger thing?
Yeah.
It's very strange.
I have a hard time imagining that any of this is his idea.
No, I don't think it is.
I have a hard time imagining at his advanced age that he's like, what I really want to do is have a production company and make keychains.
But why go along with it? I mean, maybe we know why, but it's just very strange. It's very strange.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Weird. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's strange. Just odd.
And, you'd think that she would also dress him better, like at least provide a service here.
Well, that's his look, is the hoodie with the torn sleeves. And he's like John Fetterman, except he's actually, was good at his job.
Well,
Belichick was.
I think his family and friends need to stage an intervention. But best of luck to him. He's a grown man. He can make his own decisions, his own choices.
Sure.
Let's move to the nurses. I want to talk about them for a minute. The video that we played here, these nurses are getting a lot of blowback because they thought it would be fun to make a video, and it's stupid. And you don't make fun of the substances that your patients leave behind, right?
No.
Like, who wants to be like, oh, I just left and now my nurse is going to make a TikTok of me? But this is the society in which we live. And this is one instance, but this is running rampant in culture. Everybody thinks they need to document freaking everything. They do everything, they got to document it. And you're at work, you got to document it. No, you need to be a nurse. Like, this is, to me, this is unsettling. And this is only going to get worse, by the way, as more people want to be less professional and more influencer.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I worked in a paint store and I was doing my whole Trump thing and everything, I wasn't, standing at the paint mixer and being like, we're making beautiful colors, right? You see it? Look at this, a beautiful color red. It's called MAGA red. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't documenting everything in that store. I had a job to do. I had to mix paint for my customers. I had to sell them stuff. I had to upsell. I had to do these. The fact that you have these nurses, I mean, you brought up the COVID, right, where they were doing the dances, the overworked. And that's not to say that nurses did not do a lot of work during the pandemic, but it is kind of like one of those things where you're sitting back, you're saying, okay, they're overworked, but they have time to dance, right? Yeah. But then this takes it to another level, right? I understand maybe documenting that you're having fun at work in the middle of tough times. It's a nice morale booster, right?
Yeah.
This is not a morale booster. This is your patient is sick. There's something wrong with them. I mean, imagine if that was, your aunt, your uncle, your mom, your dad, your sister, who uncontrollably lost function of something, and the person that's supposed to take care of them is mocking them for
making
being
a
sick
video
in the
about
first
it,
place, and then putting it online and laughing about it. That's just, I mean, I would take whomever it was that I knew out of that hospital immediately and say, it's ridiculous. Well, I can't trust you. You're in this for clicks and views. You're not in this to make, mom, dad, brother, niece, nephew, sister well. I wouldn't want it to be me. If it was me, I'd say, you know what, well, let's make a video right now, right? Let's make a video right now, but we'll have some fun now.
Feels like a HIPAA violation to me as well.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it, and it's not cute. Everybody wants to be an influencer now. It's like, do it on your own time, though. Right. Don't do it while you're at work.
Don't do it on company time.
It's very weird. Yeah. Now, I do this for a living, so this would make sense for me. Like, if we're podcasting, whatever, like, we work in the space, right? But
sure.
It's just, I don't like it, and I think social media is ruining America. Let's talk about the SHEIN thing. Okay. I love how they're like, we're opening an investigation onto how this landed on our site. Okay. It looked like it was him. If it's not him, it's a stock image of him. Someone superimposed it. I don't actually believe that Luigi Magione was, let out of jail and they let him go put on that shirt and be like, hey, model for a second. But this is two things wrong with this. One, SHEIN is a cheap crap Chinese communist brand full of crap, and it should be tariffed. And it's just, fast fashion is just ick in a lot of ways, especially coming from communist China. But also, the fact that they thought this would sell the shirts is another disturbing symptom of society today, in my opinion.
Well, that's part of what you said. Social media is ruining society because social media is what glorified Luigi Mangione. Yeah. Because apparently the way to solve problems is to people, according to the left, right? You have a problem with the healthcare industry, just go for the CEO. That'll fix it. No, it won't, right? That's only going to make your cause actually suffer because people are going to see you for the violent, rabid lunatics that you are. And, and not actually come to the table with real solutions. You want to fix the healthcare industry, taking out a CEO who, let's be honest, it wasn't, and I forget the CEO's name.
Brian Thompson.
Brian Thompson. It wasn't his decision to deny somebody care, right? You want to say there's maybe policies, and I'm sure he didn't take the file and go into Mangione's file or whomever it is that he was, doing this for and say, yeah, that person, let's just out. He's not doing things like that. He's not a line level worker that's doing things like that, right? I mean, the CEO of my car insurance company isn't the one who's denying my claim, right? I'm not going to go the CEO because someone didn't cover the hail damage that I got from the last, near tornado, which, by the way, they did cover it. And we got a new roof, and it's a beautiful roof. But this just shows you, and it started on social media with the glorification. It was a lot of leftist people. Oh, he's cute. He's this, he's that. Taylor Lorenz saying it brought her joy on social media.
She's
Joy Reid. This is all of these people did this on social media. It's the era of being an online shock jock. That's why Howard Stern's not popular anymore, because everybody on social media is Howard Stern now. They say the most ridiculous things that they can because the algorithm and society rewards being ridiculous. It rewards being sensational. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you hear about something going on. My favorite example was December of 24. Drones over New Jersey. How many people told me there were school bus-sized drones in the sky? Nobody had a video. Very nice. So Miss Frizzle and the Magic School Bus is flying around New Jersey, and not a single person, you mentioned everyone's got to document everything, not one person can give me a video of the school bus-sized drone, right? Then you had people saying there was a nuclear bomb that went missing, and they were trying to find it. Because making things up, crazy things, gets you the clicks, the views. Saying, hey, I think this was a prototype. There's a press release from June of 2023 that said they were doing testing in the exact location where the sighting surfaced. They're like, no, that can't be it. Why? Why can't it be it? They're telling you what it is. Why can't it be it? Because it makes too much sense. So social media glorifying an assassin like that, all of that is a problem. And I don't believe for a second that the whole, that's not supposed to be Luigi Magione. That's him.
Yeah,
it's not him physically, but that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Okay,
sure,
you guys do that. I'm sure on the list of communist China, I'm sure that's top of mind for them.
Sure.
Let's talk about some other conspiracies. Okay. I want to give my perspective on this, and it's a little bit hard to do sometimes because along with the sensationalism is the people that want to go for the jugular. If they are a one issue person and this is their issue, you can't say anything about it. Otherwise, you're like a pedophile enabler.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to make this very clear. I think it's important that we have transparency around the Epstein stuff. However, the people that make this their one and only issue, their sole issue, to me, it's starting to get, I'll be honest, annoying. I think it's also starting to annoy President Trump because he's like, what more do you want from me? And he said that basically yesterday. Let's take a look.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. It reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
And then yesterday, the victims on, the steps, I understand it. I understand that those people have been through something horrific. But I wasn't the only one to point this out. There were several what I would consider right-wing folks saying yesterday, if you're going up there and you're making this spectacle and this display, and you're saying, who victimized you, then why aren't you saying it, though? It was bizarre to me. It's we know and we want you to be transparent. Well, you could be transparent right now. If you had something. I don't get asking to be a spectacle. I get why victims want to remain anonymous. But if you're saying, look at me, there's more to this story, but I'm not going to tell you more to the story, but I know more to the story, that to me read a little weird.
Well, it's very strange. Now, we'll start at step one. It was Bondi, binders, the whole I'm releasing it, and then, the FBI has it, and then kind of kicking the can down the road, and then July 4th weekend, there's nothing. That was handled poorly. I don't think anybody can dispute that was handled well. That was not handled well. I think that was handled very poorly. So that added to the issue. But the biggest problem was, again, we talk about, and you say single issue. This is their one and only thing, and I'm talking about how social media rewards sensationalism. So think about the information vacuum that was created over Epstein. Nobody was releasing anything, so they must be hiding the biggest thing in the world. And we all get convinced that other level, really bad thing happened on the island and with Epstein, and this person was involved and that person was involved that we didn't know. But we figured because no one was saying anything that it must be the worst thing ever. And what happened was disgusting. And what happened to those victims, they never should have gone through that. And I don't think anybody is trying to say that these victims are not legitimate or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But we heard, Trump's covering up for pedophiles. He's enabling pedophiles. They're not releasing the rest of the information. But something very interesting happened yesterday after these victims came out and they said, we're going to release our own list. Thomas Massie came out and said, no, they're not going to release their own list because if they do, they're opening themselves up to legal consequences and getting sued for defamation. What does that mean? You can't get sued for telling the truth.
Right.
But you can get sued if you tell the truth and can't prove it's the truth. So what that means is there is no evidence available to these victims other than their own memory. And I'm not delegitimizing them, but just in a court of law, just because somebody said something happened and it's a very bad thing does not mean it happened. You have to be able to prove that it happened. So if, for example, Victim A comes out and says, Bill Gates did X, Y, and Z to me on Epstein Island, all right, in a court of law. And they are now the accuser. They now have to shoulder the burden of proof. They now have to prove what they are saying is true. If Massey is coming out and saying they're not going to release their list because they could get sued, it means he knows they don't have any evidence other than their testimony, which isn't enough in a court of law. Right? Look at E. Jean Carroll. Okay? Look at what happened to Trevor Bauer with Major League Baseball. Look at what happened in the Duke lacrosse case. We've seen this happen a number of times. Tiger Woods got accused of more people than we've seen he was involved with. I'm not saying these victims are lying. I'm saying there are standards that have to be met, and they can't meet them. Therefore, they can't release names, right? That just goes to show that what everybody was saying back when this whole thing blew up was maybe there isn't a list. I never thought there was a physical list that Jeffrey Epstein wrote. On July 15th, 1997, I trafficked this girl to Bill Clinton. Like that, criminals don't log their crimes on Excel spreadsheets. Like that's not what happens. So the lawyer came out yesterday and said that there's no client list. These women, they want to release names, but Massey came out and said they're not going to do that because if they do, they're going to get themselves in trouble, which means to me, they don't have enough evidence to support what they're saying, even though it probably happened. They can't prove it. So what evidence is being hidden if these victims don't even have it, right? What that to me means the existence of what we thought was their blackmail tapes, a client list, a little black book. It's not there. How long has it been gone? Did it never exist? Did it exist up until a point? Was it destroyed? Was it covered up? I don't know. But there's nothing left to release. Like Trump said, there's nothing left to release. What else do you want? Right? He's trying to get the grand jury testimony. These judges are saying no. They're blocking it, right? I mean, the other thing is there are going to be... Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just into one thing. He had a lot of money. He financed a lot of people, right? So I equate this a lot. I say, you take your car into a mechanic, you drop it off, you get an oil change, you pick it up, you bring it back. You are now a client of that mechanic, right? Well, what happens if your mechanic happens to be a meth dealer? You don't know. Does that make you a meth head? Just because you did work? And I'm not saying that everybody who was in Epstein's orbit was innocent, but there are going to be people, if they just release everybody who was associated, who will get caught up in guilt by association unfairly, right? You know, like Donald Trump, apparently. Everybody, lawyers, victims, you know, witnesses, Ghislaine Maxwell, the ladies yesterday, the panel at MSNBC did. Donald Trump had nothing to do with all of that, okay? Epstein was a part of his club. These are two men with money. They're going to swim in some of the same circles. But every bit of testimony has been that he wasn't involved. My fear, guilt by association for innocent people. And, of course, if these ladies do come out with their own list, do they have the proof? It sounds like they don't. So they really can't do much. And that's a shame. That is a shame because they deserve justice. They deserve to see the people who did these things to them, whoever they may be, held accountable. But if you can't prove that it happened, you're never going to get accountability. That's just the way the legal system works.
Also, fair to point out that Jeffrey Epstein is dead.
That's also true.
So, at least looking at this, the abuser is no longer with us.
Right.
There might be other abusers out there. I hate to remind people of this, but there are abusers everywhere. Not just the people that knew Epstein, all this. To me, this hyperfixation on the Epstein stuff, I understand it. People want to know, they want transparency, especially if it's rich, wealthy people involved. And people, everybody wants somebody's head on a spike, a notable person, and they want that. I feel like they really wanted that with Diddy, too. It's like, we got his head on a spike. Like, look what we got here. I'm not saying that Diddy was guilty, innocent, whatever. But I will say this. I wish they would have that same energy in protecting the kids that are currently being exploited and currently being trafficked.
Absolutely.
Because every time I post something about, DC crime or whatever, you've got these people in there. What about the Epstein? What about the Epstein? What about the Epstein? And I'm like, listen, I understand it.
It's annoying.
But in DC, they found five missing kids already. 5 missing minors. Let's talk about that, though, because this is real-time stuff. I get what he did is horrible and the abuse and all this, but let's see the same energy for rescuing and saving people that are currently being trafficked and exploited. If you don't have the same energy for that and you just want somebody's head on a spike, I read it as slightly disingenuous. And I wish people would just, maybe they'll never move on from it. You don't ever move on from horrific tragedy or exploitation. But let's see the same energy elsewhere if you're serious about victims.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
The FBI has saved thousands of children since Donald Trump took office from child trafficking and child sexual exploitation. Thousands of children, tens of thousands, a large number of online sexual predators, groomers, etc., have been taken down by this FBI. None of that matters to the Epstein crowd because they're like, but it's not that one.
Yeah.
But he's just one and he's dead. I understand there's a wealthy ring that we think operated and we should want the answers. But you can't say that those other kids don't matter. Yeah. You can't say this case in Alabama where parents sold their children into a sexual exploitation business where they locked these kids in a storm bunker and were tortured for months. They don't. No, I say, so do we care about these victims? Do we care about? No, what about the Epstein files? Well, now to me, that makes you unserious.
Yeah.
Because you only care about a certain group of people because you think somebody you don't like is guilty and you don't have the proof.
Right.
That's it.
And both sides are guilty of it, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about something else that I think is rather interesting. Speaking of D.C. Okay. There's an 88-year-old D.C. delegate. She spoke yesterday, or perhaps the day before. I want you to take a look at this woman and you tell me if you think she should run for re-election. Let's take a listen.
Thank you very much.
I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I stand with the ACLU
and she says she's going to run again. Shawn, I feel badly for elderly people. And there are elderly people who, they're not as mobile as they used to be, and they still have a sharp mind. And I'm not saying that they're, useless to society. I don't think that. But I think we have a real problem right now of people on both sides of the aisle that they just want to take their seat to the grave, and they're going to keep doing that job for as long as people will vote for them, and they don't care if they're incapacitated.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't look like someone to me who's got a command of her faculties and should be not only not serving now, she's going to run again.
I know. That's scary, right? So think about it. Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Same. He can't stand up. He has a hard time. It's not funny. It's a little funny, but it's not really funny.
And he pauses.
He pauses. He freezes.
And he freezes. And
right?
it's horrible. We're not making fun of their disability or their elderliness, right? It's just like, it's time to not do this anymore.
But so you have that. You got Grassley, who's, aging into his seat. You had Dianne Feinstein, who literally had to be told, just vote yes, just vote. Yeah. Come on. They kicked her alive, kind of. You've got Pelosi. She just broke her hip, okay? Somehow, again, she can't keep her teeth in her mouth. She can't stand up, but she could trade stocks. Yeah. She's very good at the market. I don't know how she figured that one out. But it is on both sides, right? Feinstein, Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's spunky for an 82-year-old, but he's 82 years old. Okay.
Well, he's one of them I will say is an exception because I haven't seen him slipping.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I don't agree with him, but like he can do it.
He's a healthy 82 or 83 or whatever. But Biden, we just went through this. Guy couldn't, falling up the stairs, shaking hands with nothing, right? Making up words. He said this in an interview in 2022 with Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes. This is a direct quote. They asked him about his age, and he replied with, "I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly." That is a direct quote. I don't know what it means. Nobody can tell me. They go, "You know what he's saying." No, I don't.
No.
What does it mean? Nobody can tell me. He slept off his days at the beach. He's got cancer. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I hope he makes a full recovery, and the whole thing. But then just think about it, right? So you have these elderly folks, she couldn't move, the poor woman from D.C. I don't think she should run again. I think she should live out the rest of her life in peace, right? Just take a load off, let somebody else carry the torch. Then you had this strange thing over Labor Day weekend where Trump apparently died because the left didn't see him. So wait a second. So we went through 4 years of a president that was barely visible and couldn't make it up flights of steps. So and you don't see Trump for 2 days and he's dead, right?
Yeah.
And that just says to me how much they understand how much work he's actually doing because he is always so visible, right? So a little bit of a change of pace and they're like, oh, he must be dead. Okay.
He had a 3-hour live televised cabinet meeting before Labor Day. He comes back after Labor Day, does a press conference, takes at least 45 to 50 minutes of he speaks and answers questions for about 50 minutes, almost an hour. And they're still like, well, but like, he's got bruises on his hands. I'm like, well,
And?
if the man is not slipping, I don't see him missing a step.
No.
Now, there are some people that just hate Trump, so it doesn't matter to them. But they're the same people that also said that Joe was an Olympic athlete behind closed
Sharp
doors.
as attack, right? He had all of his faculties about him. This is Joe Scarborough. This is the best version of Joe Biden I've ever seen. Then he goes on the debate stage. Bombs, right?
Yeah,
Terrible.
that was...
Corinne Jean-Pierre blamed it on jet lag, even though he was in the same location for 7 straight days.
Well, I think Hunter blamed it on Ambien.
Yeah. Hunter.
From days prior.
Blamed it on Ambien, yeah.
So there's a lot going on there.
But they acted like, it was Joe is sharp as attack to Joe is too old, and it all happened overnight.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's when they decided they didn't need him anymore.
Right. It was like, wow, he must have got dementia and got old in 24 hours.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
When they decided...
Yeah.
We can't run this guy.
No, next.
And they really didn't want to run Kamala, which was the real thing. That was the real issue here. I want to talk about what's going on in the UK, what's going on in Europe, just in general. There was actually a hearing about this yesterday in Congress because we have our representatives are a little concerned about the censorship that's going on over there because our American companies, they're involved, right? Let's play this panel. People are getting arrested for their comedy jokes now. This is no joke. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
According to Graham Linehan, because the only thing the police have said is that they've acknowledged a man was arrested on suspicion of inciting violence. That's why the police say they turned up. What's your view, Mr. Polanski?
These are totally unacceptable tweets, and I accept that people who are in politics, we get lots of abuse. But let's also face, we shouldn't get abuse.
Yeah,
and I certainly recognise that women get more abuse than I do, for instance. I get a lot of anti-Semitic abuse.
Yeah.
I'm one of a few Jewish leaders that have been in British politics. Today, a Muslim man was elected as my deputy leader, Motin Ali. I've seen the amount of Islamophobia he gets. We also know that for all of those groups, trans people have been in the sights of the nastiness and the toxicity for a long time. Now, I accept proportionality of police response is a conversation we need to have.
But do you think this was proportionate?
I think it was proportionate to arrest him. I think there's a pattern here.
5 armed police officers turning up?
Well, that's the bit that I don't understand why they were armed.
Yeah.
And again, I'd need to hear about the police response.
And why there were 5, presumably.
For sure.
Arresting people for jokes or for saying mean things about people online. That is horrifying.
That's why we fought the revolution.
Yeah.
That's literally why we fought the revolution. You couldn't do that, right? You couldn't, I mean, that was back in the day when we tarred and feathered our tax collectors, which I would love to start doing again, metaphorically, of course. But this idea that he can't make a joke online and then and not escape like the arm of the law, that's scary. That's really scary. And it happened a little bit here. Douglas Mackey got, hit with potential jail time over the meme about Hillary Clinton, right? I mean, we've seen it happen in the United States, but not to, well, I mean, Mackey, maybe it's
that
to that
degree
extent.
That's quite the degree.
But they grabbed this guy in the airport. Was it where he got arrested? He landed and then they snatched him up. Like, you made a trans joke, you have to go to jail. What? And this is my thing. How many times do I have to hear that the trans community is under attack? Right. When you can't joke about them.
Right.
If you joke about them, you go to jail. I'm under attack. My speech, well, not in the UK, but my free speech is under attack. If I can't make a joke about a community, a person in the community, whatever, right? And you could say, oh, the jokes are off color, they're insensitive, they're this. Maybe it's not your type of joke, but at the end of the day, it's a joke, right? And people should not be getting arrested because someone got offended by a joke, because you got to arrest everybody. Every joke has a victim and a punchline. Right. Every joke, okay? I make a joke about Chris Christie, I'm probably offending a fat person somewhere. I'm sorry. He's huge. He's a slob. I make that joke all the time. We said that, he was on the debate stage with Trump. Someone threw an orange at him. It got stuck in his orbit, right? All around. He got a new moon. Beautiful tomato right around. I make the joke, all right, about Chris Christie. Pritzker, same thing. They're like, that's not nice. Well, it's not. I'm not saying this about all big people. I'm just saying about that big person. But the point of the matter is, every joke has a victim. There's Jew jokes, there's Christian jokes, there's white jokes, there's black jokes, there's Hispanic jokes, there's Indian jokes. Everyone's the butt of a joke at some point. If we're going to start arresting people because it's offensive, you're going to arrest everybody. Anyone who makes a joke now just broke the law because they've made fun of something, and you can't do that anymore.
Well, and I'm wondering, too, the level of enforcement. So if they go online in the UK and they make fun of President Trump, something just tells me that they're not going to be arrested. It depends on who you make fun of, and if they're a protected class, then you can't. But if they're just, a conservative or like a white male conservative, I think that you're pretty much open season on you. You can say whatever you want about white straight men who are also happen to be conservative. That's like fair game. But this is disturbing to me. And I would also point out that Europe has a real problem with migrant crime.
Yes.
Like actual crime.
Like real
like
crime.
actual kidnappings and actual real problems, assault on young women from their lovely migrants and their multiculturalism. They seem to turn a blind eye to that, but they're arresting people for their jokes that might hurt somebody's feelings online. It's just an incredible juxtaposition to me.
Trump should identify as transgender, get people to joke about him in England, and then have them arrested, right? Because now he's a member of a protected
Then he
class.
would be an authoritarian.
Then he'd be an authoritarian, right? He'd be meddling in another country's affairs, right? Yeah, the migrant crime that they have there is a much bigger problem than I'd say a comedian's jokes on social media.
Yeah.
But they don't think so. And that's the problem. And we dealt with it here for a little bit, not to that extent, again. But, you have illegal aliens committing crimes in this country, violent crimes against children, against women. They've been stealing from the taxpayer. Some, not all, but it's a problem, right? Drugs coming into the country, it's a problem. And what were people focused on? Somebody who walked in the ropes on January 6th, a grandmother who prayed outside of an abortion clinic, praying. Ooh, it was very scary, right? Traditional Latin mass, when it comes to Catholics, they're like, oh, they're speaking Latin. They must be terrorists. Go in there. Parents at school board meetings were prioritized over illegal aliens bringing fentanyl into the country. So we've seen our share of that type of backwardsness as well that you see in Europe. Maybe not to the extent when it comes to the trans community, although I wouldn't count anything out when it comes to the way the left wants to enforce the law. But it's definitely disturbing and troubling to see that happening, because what happens over there a lot of times happens over here.
Right. No,
I don't want to see that happen over here.
Well, during COVID, we saw a lot of it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Up until I think maybe 6 months ago, we couldn't even say anything about COVID and put it on YouTube.
Right.
Like you just couldn't. Or the men and women's sports. You couldn't say anything about that either because YouTube would flag it. So it's like you couldn't talk about that.
Right.
I think they've loosened it slightly, but it's still like that's pretty ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you caught any of RFK Jr. this morning testifying about vaccines, and he was being questioned, and it was not necessarily supposed to be about vaccines, but boy, he just got hammered by the left and the right over the comments that he's made about vaccines, but specifically the COVID vaccine. And it was miraculous to me to watch these so-called Republican senators be like, warp speed was the greatest thing ever, and the COVID vaccine, there's no problems, and we have to keep giving the boosters, and they save lives. And I'm just thinking, and he held his ground on that, and I was so delighted to see him hold his ground.
Yeah.
While they just attacked him.
I heard some of it. I heard him and Bernie Sanders going at it, and Bernie screaming and waving his arm. What's really cool is one of my biggest issues that I've had with Trump was his constant defense of Operation Warp Speed.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, stop. Just stop. I get it. It was fast, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But recently he came out and was like, well, they gave me something, but the public has something different. Was this a good thing or not? And it's the first time I've ever heard him question it. So we're moving in the right direction on that. And I think that's due in large part to Bobby Kennedy. And look, my biggest problem with the COVID vaccine, with the flu shot, with a lot of they don't prevent the illness. I got the flu shot a couple, many, many years ago. The doctor was like, you want the flu shot? It's free today. Sure, give me the flu shot. I take it. 6 months later, 5 months later, whatever, I got the flu. I'm not saying it's because I got the shot that I got the flu. I'm saying I still got the flu. So my doctor asked me the next year, do you want the flu shot again? I said, no, because last year I got the flu, even though I got the shot. And they were like, well, it didn't cause it. I'm like, well, I don't know that, but I also, that doesn't matter. I got the shot to prevent the flu.
Why would I take
and I
that
still
risk?
wound up with the flu. So I don't want it. It proved to me it doesn't work, right? COVID. How many times in May of 2021 did we hear about breakthrough cases? Oh, this person was vaccinated. It's a breakthrough. It's not a breakthrough. Everybody was getting it. A breakthrough is something rare.
Yeah.
Wow, this is an achievement. This is something, a phenomenon. This wasn't a phenomenon. If everyone's getting a breakthrough case, it's not a breakthrough case.
Yeah.
It's a case, right? So I had my COVID in April of 2021. I got my 10 days off work paid. I celebrated with a lot of Chinese food because they came from China. And I had my job asking me, are you going to get, they weren't mandating it, but are you going to get vaccinated? You're going to do this? I said, no, I got natural immunity. Why do I want your vaccine?
Yeah.
That doesn't work. Okay. The biggest problem I have with the COVID vaccine is that's when they started to change the definition of vaccine. A vaccine went from something that prevents illness to now lessens the severity of the illness.
Yeah.
Since when? I mean, could you imagine? I always said this to people. Could you imagine if the polio vaccine was as effective as the COVID vaccine? We'd all have polio.
Right.
We'd all have polio. It would be a huge problem. It didn't eradicate anything, right? Polio vaccine is keeping polio in check. Tuberculosis vaccine is keeping TB in check. COVID vaccine is not keeping COVID in check. That's why we need new vaccines. You wouldn't need a booster if the first thing worked in the first place, right? So I'm happy to see RFK hold his ground on COVID, but also, and DeSantis is doing this in Florida, which I like.
I was going to ask you about that.
Listen, it should be the choice of the parent whether or not they want to stick their kid with a vaccine. He's not outlawing it. He's just saying, if you want it, go get it. If you don't, you don't have to. That's what this country's supposed to be about. The choice to make your own decisions when it comes to your children, your family. School choice is a big issue of mine. I think if you shouldn't be forced to send your child to a failing public school. Tennessee is leading the way in a bit in that with the vouchers and educational savings accounts, et cetera. So I think it's long past time to start opening this back up to the parents. Let the parents decide what's best for their kids. They're the ones who know best, not the government.
Here's
teachers.
my one thing on that, and I don't disagree with you. The reason that the COVID vaccine and everything about COVID, one of the main things that angered me about it is it made people lose trust in our institutions.
Right.
And RFK mentioned that this morning, that people don't have trust in the CDC anymore. So when they talk about all these cases of measles in places where people maybe aren't getting vaccinated for measles, it's because they lost trust in the CDC and they lost trust in vaccines. Now, I have not lost my trust in measles, mumps, rubella. I got measles, mumps, rubella when I was a 90s kid and I was a little baby, and it served me well, right? I never got measles, mumps, or rubella. So that was fantastic. Do they need all those shots? I don't know. Those three seem pretty good. Those three seem like they kind of did their job, right? And they were studied for a long time. And so I'm on board with that. Now, what bothers me is that because of what the COVID vaccine did and undermining people's trust, now people are like, well, maybe not the measles one either. And so I'm like, ooh. But see, I don't think that's RFK's fault. I think it's the people that push the COVID vaccine's
It's not
fault.
RFK's fault. No.
So for me, I would still hope that there would be some trust in the trusted core ones, because I think that those have been time tested and true. And I think that we don't want to see kids getting measles, right? Like, there was a problem with that. Like, let's be honest, there was a measles problem in places where people were not getting the measles vaccine. So I'm wondering if you see, how do we find a balance here? Because I think there's a balance to be found.
It's a pendulum. It has to balance itself. It swung so hard into one direction where you must get every vaccine that we tell you to get. And now it's swinging very hard in the opposite direction where we will not get a single thing that they tell us to get, right? And at some point, it's going to balance itself out. Measles, mumps, rubella, that whole thing, to me, I look at it and I go, if you want it, again, if you want the vaccine, get it. If you don't want the vaccine, don't get it. I don't think a child is going to die from measles. I don't like the fear-mongering around it. Yes, it's an issue. It could spread. I understand that. But I'm one of these people where, the serious things. I don't want tuberculosis back in society. I don't want polio back in society. I don't want some of these really serious, the flu, that's not serious for kids. Some kids do, comorbidities, I get it. But the flu vaccine has been out too. That's not preventing these deaths. So it's not, the biggest thing. COVID does not, without comorbidities, does not children, especially the latest variants, right? So there's no reason why we should be fear-mongering. That's my biggest problem, is you have to be afraid of this, so you have to get this vaccine because this vaccine is going to make sure that you don't die and you don't get the virus and you don't spread it, to grandma. Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. The virus stops with each vaccinated person. Those are her words. When that person gets sick, the virus stops, is what she said. That's not true. Right. She has never issued a correction on that. That is not true. But they made this, the death clocks, grandma's going to die. This is going to happen to you. You're going to wind up losing a lung. You're going to wind up on a ventilator. So get vaccinated so none of that happens. And then what happens? You still get sick. Most of the people aren't winding up on ventilators anyway because they're relatively healthy enough to fight the virus off on its own. The vaccine's not doing anything. I know people who got COVID more times than me, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that could just be because I only got tested a couple times. Because I got what I needed from the virus, 10 days off work paid. That's what I wanted, right? So it worked out well for me, and a lot of Chinese food. But I know other people who, kept getting tested, and they somehow kept getting the virus. And I asked them, I said, didn't you, just get boosted? What happened? And they're like, oh, don't start. I'm like, no, I want to start.
Yeah.
Why didn't it work? Do you know why it didn't work? What happened? What went wrong here? That's what we're talking about. That's not RFK's fault. That's the fact that we were told something was going to happen when we got the vaccine, and then the opposite happened.
Yeah.
It's not Bobby Kennedy didn't cause the vaccine to fail. The vaccine failed on its own because it didn't work, right? So that's what undermines the trust in these institutions, not Robert Kennedy saying the institutions lied. Everyone knows the institutions lied, and that's the biggest issue.
I like that he wants to research and give us real information, and I think that that's the most important part. I would also add this, though. I do have a little bit of a fear and hesitation that, again, back to our social media conversation, there are some people, though, that will do things with their kids because the trad mom on TikTok told them to do it.
Yep.
I have
I have a huge problem with that.
I'm like, woo. And they're like, there's the big thing about the raw milk thing. Like, people are like, just drink raw milk. Well, there's a reason that you might not want to drink raw milk. There's problems with it, right? But people are like, well, the trad mom on TikTok who's making money off
you can't take your parenting advice from somebody online.
Yeah.
And this goes back to something that happened, probably 15 to 20 years ago, okay? The Cookie Monster on Sesame Street was outlawed for a while. I don't know if you know that. They turned him into the Veggie Monster because he loved eating cookies. And parents were like, he's inspiring my child to eat cookies. And I'm like, you are buying the cookies, okay? Your 8-year-old is not jumping into the car, driving to Kroger, and coming home with a box of Chips Ahoy. You are. Just don't buy the cookies. If you're taking your parenting advice from a puppet on television, you have another problem besides the fact that your kid's eating too much. Set the standards, right? If you don't want your child to eat cookies or that many, don't bring them into the house. Or don't bring them into the house in such large quantities. Maybe get the little bite-sized bag. Here's your cookie for the day, right? But they got rid of the Cookie Monster because parents were blaming the puppet for their child's obesity. And this is the same thing. Now you have parents taking advice from so-and-so on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, X, everything, and going, well, this person says doing that's a great idea, so I guess that's a great idea. Like, you can't just take people's word for it on the internet. You gotta, if you want to do the raw milk thing, again, that's a choice. I don't have a problem. Do what you want, but do what you want after doing the due diligence. Yeah. And due diligence is not, I saw a 95-second TikTok video that's heavily edited, right? That got, a few 100,000 views, so therefore it's credible. No, 95 seconds worth of TikTok is not something people should be basing their parenting on.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think the message of the day is there's a lot of things about social media that are unhealthy. Social media is great. Use it as a tool. Don't become a tool. I think that's kind of where we end it. And don't film your patient's bodily fluids.
Don't do that.
Because that's mean. And if these people are there, it's because they need help. Like, if they dribble a little, leave them the hell alone. I think that's the message.
Don't shame the patient for having an issue. That's why he's there or she's there. You don't shame them for being sick. They don't want to be sick.
And let's stop watching the TikTok videos of the nurses doing the videos and making fun of people. So I think that's a good way to end it. Thank you for being here, Shawn. I always appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
We hit every topic. We just covered it all. So I appreciate it. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, folks, that does it for this Thursday episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Catch full episodes on Outkick, Fox Nation. Also, please check out the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless from Nashville. God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. For more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Just click right here so you never miss a beat. I will be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.